Well, Stuart, it's wonderful to meet you, man. Thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate
Happy
it.
to be here.
So before we get into your work, your impressive body work, I want to know this. 5 years ago, this pandemic changed our lives, changed so many things. How did you get through that era, and how did it change the way that you do things now?
All right. Okay, Joe. So I've listened to you ask that question a couple of times now, and I'm
Yeah,
like, is he going to ask me that question? Um, and I got to tell you, I enjoyed the pandemic.
yeah,
I have been on the road and just grinding it out and loving every minute for 25 years. And the pandemic gave me a minute to breathe. Um, yeah, of course, it was a little freaky financially,
yeah,
and we've all heard the stories about the PPP money. And, the one thing I did is I did not lay off any employees.
yeah.
And I re like the first week, of course, I reduced stuff for a minute. And then I realized, well, you can't lay people off because it's like, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
So, luckily I've been doing it a while and I had a little bit of cash put away. So I was able to, muddle through it. And we had a lot of receivables going into the pandemic. And then I realized that things weren't going to change, you know, so in my production life, which we get projects from all over the country and we've been on planes forever, I realized that was going to change pretty quickly. And somebody told me that there were something like, I don't know, 16 million people within a 5-hour radius of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, I need to find some small projects any projects that are going on within that area. And there's a lot going on. Um, and I think it was just one of those things. It just went through it and slowed down. And I don't know if the industry is really ever ramped back up to where it was,
Yeah.
like at least the media industry. It's so yeah, there's continual changes.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, and I know that did take a big hit, the film industry. And it's that reorganization of, the way like Netflix and these independent companies and how all that fetters that. So let's get to the heart. Let's get to the heart and soul. It's very clear what you do on paper, but what you do on a daily basis. If I put you in front of a bunch of kids at career day, they're 12 years old, kid in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" What's your answer to him?
Okay, well, I do that for high school kids more and college kids more than 12-year-olds. Um, well, I mean, the net is I run businesses like every other business, but then on my good days, I get to take pictures and shoot video of people having a great time. Um, so I tell stories using cameras.
So did you always want to do this? What was your dream when you were that age?
When I was 12, I don't know. I really don't know if I had anything yet. But I think I honestly, even when went to college, I didn't think I'd be doing this. I assumed I would be something like a lawyer or a doctor. And when I realized that this is a viable industry and a viable career, I dove headfirst into it.
So when you were a kid, take me back to where you were born and raised. What were the seeds, the foundational seeds of your family and friends early on that grew into this career that you have with pictures and film?
So I grew up in Montreal in Canada, kind of a cool town to grow up in.
Yeah.
It's the kind of city it was then, and I think it still is today, that your parents opened the doors and you went out and played and you got on the bus, you got on the metro, like you got on your bicycle and you were just gone. And looking back now, I thought it was a huge city, but it's kind of a smaller city, but it's pretty urban. And so you were exposed to a lot as kids, and you got to be very self-reliant and responsible. And that was really cool. Um, Both my dad and my stepdad had their own businesses. So all I ever knew was to be in business for yourself. Like I never was exposed to even friends because I don't know in Montreal if it was less big business there, So I don't think my friends worked for big companies, my friends' dads, or parents or moms even. Um, so I wasn't exposed to like what corporate America is as a young kid.
Yeah.
So all I knew is you're supposed to grow up and you're supposed to have your own business.
Yeah.
And there have been times I will tell you, Joe, that I've questioned that, I will say, but in the end, I've been very, very happy and very fortunate.
In the world of creativity, there's these flashpoints early on where you get that twinkle in someone's eyes, or somebody is receptive to the work that you're doing. What was the first thing that you did that someone was like, that makes sense, and it lit that fire in you a little bit more?
Well, I think okay, so after college, I worked as a apprentice to some well-known photographers, and I got to be exposed to their world to see how it works on a day-to-day, to carry their gear, to look at how I mean, I was their guy, 24/7. So I really saw how it worked. In the meantime, I picked up a couple of little jobs here and there, and people liked my work, which surprised the hell out of me, you know. And so I just kept going, and and I don't know. It's not like anyone put you up on a pedestal. Oh, you're brilliant, yada yada yada. But people appreciated what I was doing for them and the effort we were putting in, and they would give us more work.
If you're not working and you have your druthers and you can go out and take pictures of anything, what are you doing? What's your day look like?
Okay, well, I will tell you that because how you open that sentence, if you're not working. So my motto at my studio is if I'm not working, I'm looking for work. But I will say this. We shoot a lot of stuff that is not necessarily an assignment from an ad agency or a client.
Yeah.
And when I look up at pictures that are on the wall. Granted, you don't see any here on this hotel room,
Yeah.
but when I look up at and I think back, I'm starting to now think back of like some of my favorite imagery and videos that I've created, and a lot of them were self-assigned.
Yeah.
And it was projects that I took on my own. And one thing that actually has dovetailed into my businesses today is I was exposed early on to the fact that there was money to be made in licensing work,
Yeah.
relicensing work, or licensing work. And so early in my career, like I started chasing down what were these small agencies that were the predecessors to Getty, to say, hey, could you license my work? And so before I started my own business, I took a pretty much like a 10-month trip to Europe, just shooting pictures.
Yeah.
This was before I was doing video. And I found companies that were license my work or tried to. And next thing you know, I was getting checks for it. And I'm like, okay, this works. And then they said, hey, why don't you go out and shoot da da da? And I'm like, okay. And I just do it on a day between projects. And next thing you know, they were licensing it. And so I learned that, my own creative vision resonates with, I guess, the commercial market and even the fine art market. And so I never stopped. Like I'm always trying to look for projects. And it's funny because now that I've been doing it a while, I've had a lot of producers come work for me and I've learned that I have to watch what I say because I talk a lot. But like if I say I want to shoot something, I can't forget that I said it.
Yeah.
And they never forget it. So it's like I gotta watch. So if I commit to something, I gotta do it.
Yeah.
So like I've done some coffee table books and I blurted out, let's do this. And next thing you know, it's like, oh my God. And I can't move forward until I complete the tasks that
Yeah.
I make for myself.
Yeah. The thing about creating, video or pictures is that you kind of fall in love with your equipment. It's a love story. And I remember the first camera my dad gave me, a Pentax K1000. I
I
loved
know
it.
it.
I loved it. What was your first piece of equipment that you still love and you fell in love with in the beginning?
Oh, well, I don't know if I still love it, but I just remember I think my first real camera was it some kind of a Canon AE1 or something like that. And yeah, I mean, I've gone through so many cameras, and it's like I did have love affairs. Granted, when I bought my first Leica, that
Yeah.
was an expensive piece of gear.
Yeah.
Or my first Red camera, it was an expensive piece of gear. Um, I've lost because technology has changed so much, and one of the guys that works for me would not let me sell my Leica. But everything else, I'm realizing that, you know what? If it's worth $25 today, it's worth $5 tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's just like we got to clear off the shelves. But early Canons, I've been a Canon guy forever.
Gotcha.
Um, Even before it was sexy to be a Canon guy.
Yeah.
I remember my dad saying, "Why don't you use Nikons? Everybody use Nikons." And I'm like, and I don't know what got me into Canons, but
Yeah.
I mean, so I've been that.
Right on. So, who's been kind of an inspirational force or a hero for you, whether professionally with the way they captured images, or personally for someone that has inspired you in your career to evolve to this point?
Well, I'm inspired by a lot of filmmakers and photographers just from their visual acumen. I mean, I worked for Helmut Newton, who was a famous still photographer,
Yeah.
who um, I loved his attitude and his approach to life, and that kind of changed my life. Um, I do, this is weird. I love biographies, and so I read a lot of biographies, and I take a lot away from people. Like I get inspired by what people have done and sometimes the challenges they've surmounted.
Yeah.
And I realize that everyone has their own story. And that's what I love about what I do too, because I get to tell other people's stories. But also I look at it from myself as like nobody's stopping you.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know,
What would be a dream project for you to cover or to do, whether it's like a story about an individual, a place on the planet? What would be a dream thing for you to do?
okay, I once wrote this down. I've never done it. Somebody once asked that. And I think today, did you know that next year is it the 100th anniversary of Route 66?
Wow, I did
I
not.
think I think that's what it is. So I told somebody once years ago, they're like, "What would be a dream project?" And I said I would love to have two semis, like with vintage cars and all sorts of props, and then a van full of actors and actresses, and do Route 66 and shoot at whatever I want at every iconic spot along the way.
That would be amazing.
It would be fun, yeah.
That would be the coffee table book of all time, man. That would
Absolutely. Yeah.
absolutely be
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So what's motivated you to, I mean, being a creative, sometimes you can hit these spots where you question what you're doing. I mean, we all do that professionally at certain points in our lives, but what has consistently gotten you out of bed when that alarm goes off, that has allowed you to do things like this, to evolve your thought and come up with these ideas and then make them a reality? What is that for you every day?
I love the game.
Yeah.
I jump out of bed every morning. I will tell you that still. Like I've never dragged my ass out of bed. I mean, I'm up and I'm trying to get on with the day and um it is kind of a game and you just never know what the day will bring. I mean, and we truly are a one phone call kind of place. Like one phone call could change my next month
Yeah.
for the better or worse.
Yeah.
Um So I think that's what drives me, and I love to continue. I read a lot and about what's going on, and I try to kind of just take it all in and assess it and try to look. I do look at the bright side of things for the most part.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty shiny guy. There was a minute, where a lot of dark down looking content was becoming like in vogue type, you know, it was like the look. And I was never that guy. I was always you know, it's a little happier. So I have a pretty good outlook on things.
Yeah. The one thing that's influenced the way that we look at life in a lot of ways is filmmakers. Filmmakers have always, like, I remember The Outsiders when I was a kid. Like I love the story, I love the movie, but Francis just had a way of capturing. David Lynch always had this totally alluring way of adding to the surreal. Hitchcock, all these cats. Who is it for you growing up? What were the filmmakers that left this idea of color and space and everything in your brain?
Whew, that's a good one. I guess I was a like a Ridley Scott guy, and I mean, Coppola, obviously, like I was growing up like Apocalypse Now type era,
Yeah.
and um, but no. I love visually cool movies. Like, so you remember like all those Simpson Bruckheimer ones, like they did all the, well, Top Gun-y kind of
Uh-huh.
stuff that were pretty sexy. They were shot in a really sexy way.
Yeah.
I really like that because I was really a visual guy. And you know how there are movies that are not visually stunning or well, but the story's amazing.
Yeah.
And I totally love those. But at the same time, especially early on in my career, I mean, I was nearly style over substance. Show me something pretty to look at,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
What was an early project for you? The thing about the bane of youth is that we have to get our ass kicked sometimes to learn and to grow and to get to a better place. What was an early project for you that was excruciating or tough or challenging, but you came through and you look back and you think, man, we pulled it out. We pulled it off.
Oh, I don't know. Honestly, I hate to say it, but I don't know. I mean, I've been nervous. I remember being in a hotel room once and I was about to start a big campaign. It was going to be a print shoot. It was like 8 pages at the front of Time magazine for Toyota. And it was big at the time. I always, and my wife always jokes, yeah, it's always the biggest project of your life. Uh, and anytime I canceled a vacation, it was always for the biggest project of your life. And anyway, but I do remember starting that job and looking in the mirror. I can still even picture the bathroom and thinking, holy shit, I'm nervous. Uh, but I don't really get that nervous anymore. You do a lot of good pre-production, and by the time you get to the shoot, it's kind of like you're ready.
Yeah.
But I
You
think
know,
early on in your career, you just don't have that experience knowing that it'll all turn out okay.
yeah, for sure. I have a Toyota and it just flipped to 200,000 miles. And I thought about that campaign they had. Remember the
Yeah.
campaign where they had the unbelievable amount of miles and everybody was jumping in the air and
Oh
they'd
yeah.
have their car. So I think about those iconic campaigns. Has there ever been a client that came to you that pitched an idea that was just way outside of your range of taste or desirability, or it was too big? Have you ever refused a project?
No,
Okay. I like
no,
it.
never. I will figure out a way to do it.
That's it. What was the
Yeah.
biggest project that when they presented it to you, you were like, okay, we can make it happen, but inside you were like, man, this is going to be a stretch.
I don't know. I mean, like I said, there've been a lot that, yeah, I mean, I don't, we've gotten huge projects from Pepsi, from Gatorade, from American Airlines, that, on paper at first glance, you're like, whoa. But then once you break it down, I mean, truly, I've always been about, there are no problems. Just break it down into bite-sized pieces.
Yeah,
So I don't really, that one doesn't resonate because it's like, um, bring it,
yeah,
as big as you want to be. We just got a call the other day for something, and they said the talent for the celebrity, which we haven't yet to choose, the budget for them is $1 million. Could you guys negotiate it? And that one took my breath away. I'm like, ooh, I haven't heard that number in a long time. And that's just for the talent.
yeah.
So I'll fill you in a few months as to who they decide to go for and how much it ended up costing.
I've noticed because of Hollywood kind of being thin on films, a lot of high profile people are doing ads now.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, that's
I
what
mean,
I
look,
say.
if you could make, $1 million for a 1 day shoot,
Are you kidding?
why wouldn't you?
Yeah, who
Yeah,
wouldn't do that?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So let's say tonight you have a dream. You walk into your childhood house. You go to your room and you sit down next to the 13, 14-year-old you, and you have a coffee table book of all the work that you've done, and you start flipping through it, and the kids look at you like, "What are we doing here?" And you're like, "I did this." Would that version of you believe it?
Never.
No. What advice would you give that young version of you ready to tear out into the world? Would you give that version of you?
Oh, dude, I'm like, when you said that, it gave me the chills. Yeah, anything's possible.
For sure. So, of everything that you've done, everything that you've evolved to, everything you've accomplished in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Oof. I think holding it together, like through the ups and downs, and uh, having a family, getting them. Like I did commercial work because I didn't want to be gone for 6 months at a time doing feature films or anything. And my kids are in college and gone now, and so we did it. Like got through. I remember somebody saying, "What do you want to early on? What do you want to do with your life? Like, what are you saving your money for?" Like, I'm like, I don't know. They're like, "Well, you ever gonna get married? You ever gonna have a family?" And it never entered my mind until it did.
Yeah,
And and I don't think my folks were truly there all the time for us. I mean, they were good people, but I think it's a different generation too. And I think the fact that we've been able to do that and be supportive of them all the way through. And I think I've had a great career. To me, it's a win. It's been super win. And I don't think my younger self would be able to digest that.
yeah, yeah. I get it. So let
Yeah.
me ask you this. When you do work behind the camera, there's a lot of people that don't actually get to know you and your personality. They'll see your work. Like I interviewed a man yesterday that drove for 10 hours from Philly to New York on the morning of 9/11 to get pictures of Ground Zero, and how absolutely soul crushing and exhilarating every emotion you could have to do that kind of a thing. But no one's going to really know who he is. They're going to see the work. He's in galleries. But Mike, and I'm setting this up this way. If you were to walk into a room of all your clients throughout the years that know you as this creative that's captured all these stellar shots, and you could tell them one fun story about you, the first concert you went to, the best sporting experience you had, a wonderful place you traveled to that was unexpectedly magical, outrunning a bear, jumping out of an airplane, what would be a fun story that would humanize you, that would pull you from behind the camera in front of it? What would be that fun story?
Well, I think anyone that's been on set with me gets that just
Okay.
because I have a lot of energy on set. Um, and everyone who does know me knows I always get what I want and it's always fun. And
Yeah.
a lot of people have definitely always said, wow, that was the most fun I've ever had. Um, I do travel a lot. I have done some crazy stuff to film interesting things. One interesting fact that people love to hear, like whenever they say, um, like a weird story. Like I once went on a mountain biking trip to Siberia just because I was looking for the weirdest place I could go. And that's where I met my wife. And she is from the States though. Yeah. So, um, but there were six of us on this trip and REI ran it for like 2 years because nobody went and or maybe 1 year. Six of us signed up and two couples got married off that trip.
Dude, that story takes the cake. Of all the stories I've gotten, that is one of the most magnanimous. That's the beauty, the mystery, and magic of life right there, man. I mean,
Yeah.
how would you even know? Um,
Here's
so,
another good one. I mean, I remember I went with this client who still remains a good friend to Irian Jaya, which is the other side of Papua New Guinea. It's the side that Indonesia owns. And there's one of the largest gold mines in the world there. And we were dropped into a jungle in a helicopter, and there's just this little bamboo landing pad. And there's a guy standing next to the landing pad, like truly with like a gourd and a spear standing there, and I'm like freaking out. And I look at the pilot and he's like, "Oh, don't worry, he's harmless. Just get out." So yeah, we jumped out to go to film these what were streams into these gold mines. But yeah, I mean, there's been some crazy stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So at the end of the day, Stuart, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, clients, everyone you work with, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Phew, I wish I could answer that. I want to answer that. And actually, I think doing some of these podcasts has helped me start to think about it at least.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm somebody that kind of just loves adventure, loves just getting out there, being a part of the world, and never stopping, you know?
Yeah. So let me ask you this, and this might be a kind of a complicated question. Let's say we get off this call and a time machine pulls up, and you can go back in the history of time and cover an event that happened as if you know what's going to happen and no one else does, but you get the chance to cover it. Maybe the
Oof.
JFK assassination, maybe the whole like the blast off for the first landing on the moon or the arrival back on Earth. Some kind of event in the history, the pantheon of human beings that you could kind of be there and cover. You won't create a tear in time, but you get that exhilaration of like covering it. What event
Wow.
would you?
Okay. Well, that's a good one. And that's also okay. So the one thing is, I'm not a journalist.
Right.
So early on, I did think when stuff happened, like bad, like, news events, I'm like, okay, I got to get on a plane and go there and take pictures of it. And then I realized I'm really not a journalist. And again, like I said, I cover the shiny stuff. Um, I guess it would have been nice to meet Grace Kelly when she was looking for a man.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, no, I mean, there's so many events, everything like, that's a tough one, Joe. I mean, I gotta have to come back on you.
Yeah, you just triggered some of mine. I keep thinking about like all of these people that we've adored just to see Marilyn Monroe in the flesh, just to see what she looked like. Did she wear good perfume? Like what all of those little things that we'll never
Yeah,
ever experience.
I think I think it would be great to have been able to say photograph and film the Rat Pack. That would have been good.
Yeah.
That would have been fun.
That would have been epic. Absolutely epic. Coming from the jazz world, you see all those pictures, and they're just absolutely all three of those guys are in stitches. You know it would have to have been the best time in the world,
Oh, absolutely.
you know?
I think it would have been cool to be in New York on like VE Day,
Yeah.
like the parades.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many, but I think there's some personalities that would have been fun. And I do think the Rat Pack, I think that was a pretty good one I pulled out.
Yeah.
I mean, geez, I mean, it would have been great to be a part of, the Beatles or the British invasion
Uh-huh.
in, you know, um, and in your world, I mean, the only jazz, I mean, early jazz guys, that the photographer Leonard, he photographed all the jazz guys. It wasn't Elmore Leonard, he's a writer.
Well, there was a
Um,
critic, Leonard
but it
Feather.
would have been interesting. Yeah, no, no, there was I'm gonna look it up because I got to tell you because we're on your show.
Yes.
But he was really well-known jazz photographer that met everybody.
I know who you're talking about. He was a friend and he got bad. I mean, everybody invited him in and he got iconic pictures. I know what
Yeah,
you're talking
oh, Herman Leonard.
about. Okay, that's it. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and like he had pictures with Billie Holiday, every jazz great, Dizzy Gillespie, and he passed away in 2010. But that's a guy, like, okay, here's something for you. But anyway, that guy, he documented that era. Like
Yeah.
he's the guy.
He is.
Okay, I got something for you. Of
Yeah.
course, I wanted to be a rock star for a minute. And then, I played guitar in high school, and this is for your world here now. And then I got accepted to go to jazz camp at KU, University of Kansas. They
Okay.
had a really good jazz school,
Yeah.
and um, and this is right end of high schoolish.
Yeah.
And I was thinking I was pretty hot shit on a guitar. And And I always wanted a Gibson ES 335, whatever. And I had some electric guitar. I had a Les Paul. Anyway, I went to jazz camp. And the first day of jazz camp, they threw, like when they're figuring out what band to put you in, they threw down this music in front of us. And I could read music. I played piano as a kid and growing up. Um, and everybody there, and then they played the tune. And everybody there just knocked it out like boom. They had perfect pitch. They could just pick it up and go. And that's when I realized, okay, I
Yeah,
might enjoy playing guitar, but
right.
I'm out.
That's it.
Um, and and I appreciate it though. I'm a big jazz fan, was a big jazz fan. But yeah, he was a great his some of his work is great.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. Yeah,
so
yeah. So, if anyone, speaking of work, if anybody wants to dive into your world further, questions, hiring, any of the good business, where do they go?
absolutely. Well, you could find me on LinkedIn, Stewart Cohen, or my website is stewartcohen.com. Um, and email address is all there. And definitely reach out. We'd love to connect. I'd love to work with anybody, any crazy, weird projects you have. Musically inclined, I'm in. I'm in.
I love it. I will put all of these links in the show notes. What an absolute joy, Stuart. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your
Thank you so
time.
much.
I appreciate it. And best of luck with everything.
All right, Joe. Take care, man. See
Cool.
ya.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Take care.
Bye.